Hello and welcome to the Infinite Creative Podcast. My name is Fitz. This is
Sean.
Sean. Yeah, Fitz and Sean. We are basically talking about everything creative, freelancing, business, kind of motivational stuff, everything that you would consider like art in a way. Or how would you describe this podcast, Sean?
Well, it's really just two creative guys drinking coffee and talking about creativity and whatever that means going forward. Even as the computers take over the world, what does creativity mean? So,
Oh, and that is actually the topic of today: AI, computers, and the art scene. I would say, or
yeah.
yeah.
Art, design, creativity in general, just like how what is the effects of AI? Obviously, that's a huge topic. So, I
Yeah, so what is
think.
the topic that you came up with? Because like I want to go through like the sections, what people can expect now, and yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. So our first episode, I think we just kind of jumped into some new news. So I think in this case, we'll do the same. We'll kind of jump into just some kind of new things that have come out. So in the last couple of months, I've been seeing a lot more stories around artificial intelligence and its effects on the creative industries. I don't know if you've seen anything in the videography world, but I know in
yes,
the graphic design world and the web design world, automation is alive and well, and can be concerning in some respects. I know there's been some times that I've ran up into situations where it's me already versus the AI, and that's really interesting when a client is, well, I can get a machine to do what you're doing for $5 in 2 minutes.
yeah.
So it's very interesting. I've already ran into some weird friction with AI. I don't know if you've ran into anything yet.
Actually, AI is like kind of helping me. Like I use like AI software where it's analyzing, like let's say you have a 1080 or 720p video, and you can upscale with AI, and it's basically drawing in between the pixels what should be there, and you get more detail. And it's not like just like how do you call that when you use the Illustrator versus like a PNG and you just scale that up, and it becomes
Hmm.
pixely. There's like a difference, it knows what's in between because it assumes what would be logical to be there. It saved me a couple times, like, or you can denoise footage, and that's what is nearly impossible to do for a human. You could go in
Hmm.
Photoshop and do all those things, but
Hmm.
bunkers. And
Well,
yeah,
yeah. Well, what's crazy there is, and to get a little scientific here, is like what you said, where you're having two pixels on the screen, and then you're having AI being intelligent enough to find that middle pixel. That's existed since the 80s. That's called anti-aliasing. So it's very interesting that there's already been automations, but now you're seeing something that's like, well, let's do that at a click of a button. So it's like really
yeah,
funny. So it's like vectors have been around since the 70s, which is what you're talking about. Vectors is scaling infinitely. Raster images have been around since like the 60s or 70s, and so it's funny. Like these automations have kind of already existed, but now it's like yeah, it's like, well, let's just remove the human part of it, right? Now before you had to go to the anti-noise filter and scroll that bar to the left and right and use your eye to see if it looks good, but now it's like, no, let's just press a button. We don't need
yeah.
Fitz's eye.
Basically, it's kind of crazy. But on that note, also there's like AI generating like captions. There's AI like I don't know if you heard about that Google computer that basically can hold a
Hmm.
conversation with you.
Hmm.
That broke the news too. I think like last week or something, where people said like, "Oh, this is self-aware. It's kind of alive." Somebody got fired for that. But
Hmm.
it's like it's a weird stage of time where we are right now, and I think like you cannot underestimate AI, and I think everybody is underestimating it right now. But overall, it's worth talking about. So, what is your
Yeah.
topic?
What is my topic? Okay, well, yeah, so let's get into it. So, like, so one of the papers that the University of Oxford and the
Oh,
Internet Institute have created is this paper called AI in the Arts, and it's about
is
how
this an
much
NFT? It looks like an NFT.
it almost looks like an NFT, right? Yeah, I know.
Yeah, the struggle.
Where's the ugly chimp in there? I know I can find it somewhere. But yeah, how machine learning is changing artistic work, and it's a really interesting read. I've read halfway through it, but it's really interesting in how it really talks about how you have these generative algorithms, these things that are that are doing their own work, right? They're being their own artist. And does this mean that there's not going to be any more artists in the world, right? Because machine learning can do the art world, it can do the technical community, it can do cognitive sciences and
Yeah.
philosophy, it can do all these different things. So does that mean that if it can do all these things and pull from all these different resources, is it going to do it better than a human would? And does that mean there even needs to be a human?
Yeah.
And so with that being said, what this article, to kind of give you a little bit of spoiler of what this entire study gets to by the end of it, is that while it is going to be taking some of the artistic freedoms that we've had in the past away, it's actually going to create new artistic freedoms. And so it's scary for us to see because we don't know. It's like talking to someone in 1970 about, someday you're going to be combining images together on this computer screen and then animating them to be 3D and visual. They would be like, you're crazy. Like that's bonkers. So it's hard for
Yeah.
us to see in 30 years, what the heck is a creative? What are we even doing? And so by the end of this, it's really interesting because it says, like, while maybe 50% of what us creatives have done is going to probably be taken away, there'll be a new 50% added that we have yet to even comprehend yet. So it's actually really interesting. So I want your thoughts, Fitze, of like, do you
Oh
think,
boy.
do you think,
Oh boy.
do you think like AI is going to replace everything that it takes away from us? Do you think creatives as a whole, do you think we're going to still have,
You want to
um,
get the true scoop, like what I truly believe?
yeah, yeah, I definitely do.
Okay,
Where are
let's
we?
get right
Give,
into it. Let's get right into it. There's a program called GPT-3, and it's basically you say something to or you type something into that site or that program, and it can code a website for you. You describe it, it speaks and does what you want it to do, and it pulls from all those databases. It's a little bit limited because it only gets fed like certain information because basically it can already code. So if you want to have a site that's coded in a certain way, does a certain thing, it will just do that. There's like YouTube videos reviewing it. It draws pictures just from you describing what you want it to be, and it just comes up with it. It's crazy. You can also invest in that, and I kind of wanted to do that, but I couldn't because like
what's the name of it again? Just one more time.
GPT free. There's Cold One's episode about it. It's kind of crazy. That is just like 4 years ago, and it writes blog articles, and you would not know that blog article is written by an AI versus not an AI, but by a program because it's not completely AI. I think I'm not sure if it's considered AI or if it's just in program because like AI is like kind of an interesting thing because some people don't really know what AI is, and it's like they learn from trial and error, like we learn. You do a design, somebody tells you this doesn't really work, and you redo it. Then you learned, oh, this worked. Then you do a second one, and then you combine what you learned, and over generations, it's getting better and better and better by trial and error, basically. And that's how those programs work. And it's kind of crazy because like we have only one lifetime, and program has like millions of lifetimes that it goes over in like a couple hours. It's crazy.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, it's what is learning, right? Learning is trial and error. Learning is yeah, going through the wrong steps, right? So yeah, so like what you're saying, artificial intelligence, it's like it's doing the same thing. It's saying nope, 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 yes, but
Yeah.
a lot
Yeah, but
quicker
it
than we
also
can.
tries. Yeah, it also tries out new things because people sometimes say like AI will never replace us because like they are not creative, they don't have that special Shazam.
Hmm.
And then you see like, oh, there's AI playing hide and seek in a video game and breaks the game
Hmm.
where we would not even thought about breaking a video game. It's like kind of when people do speed runs and glitch the game to get
Hmm.
like insane speed run times of like 5 minutes through a whole video game. And that's what AI did already. So you can watch on YouTube AI playing hide and seek, and you will see how the first generation of players will do versus like the 10,000th generation of players, and they will play better than a human can and break the game. It's kind of really interesting and scary.
Well, it's really interesting too, and I mean, we don't have to go too far down this road, but like yet again, to get back to intelligence itself, um, there's two schools of thought, right? That you learn everything in your life. So you're born an empty vessel. But some
Yeah.
people, starting with John Locke back in the early 1800s, believe that you were inborn with knowledge. So if your dad was smart, you're going to tend to be a little bit smarter, and then your kid will be a little bit smarter if you're smarter. So some people would argue that we are AI in a way that we're a conglomeration of the thoughts of generations before us as well. So yet again, it's weird. It's like AI and us are about this, like almost the same exact thing. Our brain and AI, they work in the same way. It just seems like AI, where it takes us hundreds of years to get that inborn knowledge, it seems like it's doing that in a year or two. And that's kind of what's a little
Yeah.
interesting.
I kind of want to riff on that because, like, I like the idea. If your dad was smart, you will be smart. But it's more like,
Hmm.
you know, if you have a computer and you have a strong computer, and that not a computer is the same type of computer, and obviously they're the same speed, same memory and capabilities. But
Hmm.
what program they run is depending on, you know, how much they know, what to do. You know, that's how I see like humans. You know, like there's
Hmm.
if you run really efficient computers and logics, you can be dumb. But if you have good
Hmm.
rules in life, you still get ahead in life if you like early invest and do all those things. You know, that's how I kind of see humans. You know, like it doesn't really matter.
Hmm.
I see them as computers, but depending on what they know and what they learned and what rules they follow, it will determine how they get ahead or not ahead in life.
Yeah, well, I think one thing you're touching on is the fact that some of the best things you've ever done in your life were not logical, period. And so
Yeah.
AI runs off of logic. And so it's like, so you can, I think, make the argument that until you have a computer that can somehow run off of chaos, which sounds scary all in of it on its own, um, I think that's maybe the missing ingredient, right? Is that, yeah, you've maybe, like for me, like, yeah, maybe I've designed a website, and I know that all websites need to have a hero area with a call to action and a menu bar. However, maybe there's a weird website. I'm like, no, we're going to throw this all out the window. We're going to
Yeah.
literally have like, you have to scroll and it's a sliding visual thing that comes in. And sometimes those are the best websites, right? Because we're all aware of what a website is, just like a logo, right? Like I can't tell you how many logos I see now that are just like, here's a box with another box like in the middle. Boom. It's so simple. It's so clean. But it's like, the best logos to me though are the ones that are like, what the heck were you thinking? But that's awesome. You caught my eye. You have my attention. You told the story.
But
So it's
that's what AI does right now. It's like
possibly,
it,
yeah.
so
I mean,
there's
arguably, yeah.
no. It's like kind of. I spent some time on that. Sorry for speaking now about this,
No,
but
you're good.
there's Alpha Star, and it's basically like you get basically a player, and you can go any path you want, and that's what AI does. It goes
Hmm.
any path and tries anything out it can do. So it tries random things. That's basically what you just described. It's trying out random things, and if they don't work, it doesn't make it in the second generation, but it will try them out. And at second generation, it will still try out new things, and it only keeps what is like working. And so it will find the most efficient way, but it always will experiment. And if it finds something that is like broken, works or not works, it will adapt that. And with logo design, it would be like, oh, I never would have thought about that. If enough people like it, it will iterate on that design, or it will
And
drop it.
And I think you're right. If we're assuming the AI always starts at ground zero, which I don't think it would, right? Like I think
There's
you would never be like, oh, hey AI, I want you to start a logo and start with illogical stuff first. I'm sure that the programmers would be like, here's the core set of rules to start even.
yeah.
So that's what's interesting is like, to almost have something that's as good or better than humans, you almost have to always have the AI start from nothing, start from ground one. Like I don't like because like if you give it these parameters of like a logo needs to do X, Y, and Z, it's already limited a bit. So it's interesting because in design too, there's rules just like videography. There's
Hmm.
rules, and so we follow those rules too. But it's just interesting that like so for example, when I started a creative process, a lot of people nowadays, which I push back on, they start digitally first. So like if I'm going to make a logo, I'm going to open up Illustrator and just start playing with shapes and text. And a lot of people start there, but I always start pencil and paper because it's just like you want the weird stuff. Like that's the coolest stuff I've ever done is the oddball weird stuff that comes out of the galaxy, right? Like all my logos, there's always like those cliche, here's three shapes or here's like something that like is trendy right now and that everyone's doing, right? And
Yeah.
so, but it's nice when you start with pencil and paper because it's like those oddball thoughts, those weird thoughts, like that's where the cool
Oh.
stuff seems to come to. Like, I know in your video work, I've seen some of your 3D work and stuff too, and I think it's the same thing where it's like, how the heck would you have ever come up with that if you had these constraints at the beginning? You almost had to just be like in this free
But
flow
here's the
state.
thing, though. Here's the thing. Like we all work with databases. Like you went for art school, and they basically like draw your thing first before that, or whatever you already learned is your database that you work from. It's not like that you walked outside and threw some mud against the fence and like, oh, this is the logo now. That could be step one. Now your step one is like I'm just going from pen and paper and then to digital. But you're working from the database that you already have. But if you would be truly creative, like the super whatever, you would just do something super weird, what is like what would break the concept kind of, but everything we kind of do is in those databases.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think I think you have a great point there. I think
Because
there's
you
some.
follow rules, like in the end, like you follow the rule of like, oh, I should draw that out and come up with whatever I can draw. What is like a limitation by itself?
Well, like one, so I would love to show you this real quick. So, like
Yeah,
one designer that's pretty well known for breaking the rules is Stefan Sagmeister, probably one of the top contemporary designers right now. And
yeah.
some of the things that he always approach problems with is how do we communicate in ways that aren't your standard design, right? So, so he does a lot of things where he's creating these settings to tell the message, and sometimes the setting itself overpowers the message. So like for
Oh,
example, here's him when he partnered with I'm going to forget her name. Her last name's Walsh. When they created their own studio together, this was the announcement picture of them covered in cockroaches and being dirty. This was them announcing we have a new studio. You know,
yeah.
here's another one where like they did a hand drawn layout with two tongues sticking out, talking about fresh dialogue. So it's like to get to that really weirdness to communicate something. Another thing that he liked to do is create type on faces and on bodies and to show that kind of
Yeah.
weird structure. So it's like, how do you get to these kind of weird places, right? Like, could AI get here? Possibly. But,
Uh,
I think some of the coolest stuff
you
out
you
there
mean
is
like coming up with our own design and own style?
like the concept, yeah, the idea, even the idea of like, let's put text on people, how, like, so like maybe I say, hey, AI, I want you to tell a message on a poster and get people's attention. Could they have
Yeah.
gotten to this? You could probably make the argument, yeah, but it's
Well,
interesting when
that
you
is
start to.
GPT free. Like it will pull from all databases and basically does that. Like you can describe anything and it will do anything.
Now what's interesting is so now it's all choice, right? So if it pulls from everything in the world, including what I
Yeah.
just showed you,
It will come up with its own way how it will display it.
but
What
there's
is
so
kind of crazy, because you don't tell it like I want to have 30% text or 20% text and 5% picture. We'll just do something. Um,
yeah, and I think what
I
we're
wish I
kind of
had that program. It's kind of crazy because like on
yeah.
YouTube, if you type in how people test GPT free YouTube, for examples, I try to pull it up, but it's like whoa, yeah, free example maybe. It is quite the thing,
Yeah,
but
yeah, oh yeah. And I believe you, by the way. I think what's interesting is the because we're gatekeepers, right? We all have muses in our head, and the AI has
yeah.
its own muse, and so it's us. So we're the gates to that muse becoming physical reality. The idea is becoming physical. So it's like what? So out of the ether, like what do you choose is what matters. So what does the AI choose out of the millions of different things? And so
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting. Yeah,
I
show us what.
think, yeah. So I think like we're right now at like a transition point where we are like, okay, we got this awesome tool where we can do
Hmm.
like a lot of things.
Hmm.
Um, it's really hard searching on YouTube and talking,
No, it's totally cool.
Yeah. But basically, we're at this transition point where we basically can pick and choose what tools we're going to use. But at one point, the tools become too powerful that I think we're not really valuable for the tool itself, because we will be the hindrance, and we will not be efficient enough. What
So
is like
okay.
very dark and gloom.
Yeah, yeah. Well, no, I want to get into that a little bit. So is that your kind of prediction? Do you feel like AI will become better at creating things than humans? Do you think
Yeah.
you
I
think it
think we're
will?
already at that point where you can generate like already. people, like photos of people that are like realistically looking, but they don't exist. You know?
So I guess that's I guess a core thing as well is I guess what is the value of creativity then, right? We almost have to get to that level, right? What is the value? Is it creating something that's never been done? Is it I mean, like, what is the most valuable thing of creativity, and does AI do that? Because I guess
Yeah.
the best, I guess the reason for creativity, right, is to communicate to humans something, a thought, an
I
idea.
Yeah, on that note, I think actually maybe creativity is something else. Creativity maybe is just like the trial and error of trying something new that you never have tried beforehand. And it's the next thing for the next iteration to maybe build on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. So okay. So you're saying that what creativity is it's building something that doesn't exist before using disparate parts. So
Yeah, or trying something new out or combining things that shouldn't combine. Because like in the whole NFT place, there's like also a lot of people build NFTs with like AI and they randomly generate like certain things, you know? And sometimes
mhm.
they fool you and you think an artist did that, but an artist did not do that. Well, it's kind of scary and crazy. So
It
now I'm
is,
trying.
it is, it is. And I can go off on NFTs at some point.
Yeah.
Those can get my blood boiling a little bit because what's interesting to me as an artist
Yeah.
is, don't go out and buy an NFT from some business guy in New York who owns NFTs. Go to your local gallery and pay money for an artist's piece of art. Like, it blows my mind that there's all this love around NFTs, all this kind of this elevation of NFTs where it's like go support your local artist. Like why there's so many people that don't go buy their own paintings but would buy 10 NFTs. It kind of blows my mind. It's this kind of
Yeah.
people
I,
value the commercial aspect of it more than the thing itself, it seems like. And that's where I get really worried about AI is it makes it all very cold. It's well it's just a formula and it's just creating a flat image and all that
yeah.
flat image is just currency. And so it gets this weird place where it's like ugh, it gets
Yeah,
gross real
right
quick.
now I think like the whole NFT and yeah, it's just a money crap, you know. But I personally think like the
Hmm.
technology by itself is like, oh, if you want to make sure somebody subscribed to you and he was subscriber number one, and you
Hmm.
have that as a blockchain code, it would be like the way to go, you know. And it basically you can sell them like you can sell your hey, I was the first subscriber or the first supporter of that show, you know what I mean? So like
Hmm.
it gives you a lot of things and possibilities that you wouldn't have right now. You know, you would
I
be not able to transfer like I was number one fan since day one, for example, and you could buy that for like 50 cents to support your artist. You know, you could. You
That's
see what
true.
I mean? Like you
That's
could
true.
make an NFT as a way of supporting your art, and you only validate this type of NFT, for example.
So I will. So I'll say this. So and it's funny because we're jumping around a little bit because AI and
Yeah.
NFTs they're a little bit different, but they're definitely similar. Is the fact that it seems like NFTs are just a better. It just opens up the world for touch points between the artist and people, right? Where before,
Yeah.
if you were to come to the gallery, you had to buy my painting, or you had to you either had to buy my painting or buy some prints or maybe some postcards or maybe you'd like my Instagram or something, but that's about it, right? There wasn't that much. Maybe there's
Yeah.
some t-shirts. It was always physical products. So it is so what you're saying, it is kind of cool to sell people bragging rights essentially. I
Yeah.
was the first one there. I went to his show or I can see that to a degree, but I don't know, man. We live in a time that we've already had technology before us during our lives, and it's interesting because you know what this makes me think of
Yeah.
is that high score on that pinball machine at that arcade when you were 10 years old. Who gives a crap about whose name was on that high score thing, right? Like you don't
Yeah.
care. That's not stuck in your mind over the years. So that's almost how I think about NFTs is like, so what? You were the first person to go to a Banksy show. Like it's not
Yeah.
that big of a deal, really. So I think even that's hype. I think even like humans, I think are creatures that tend to have ADD, and I think things like I have a little token that proves I went to this art show. While cool in the moment and does make you think, whoa, yeah, maybe when I'm 80 I'll show this off, but I could just see a bunch of 80-year-olds being like, look over here, look at my little NFT. Gather around, kids. Look at these NFTs. And then being like, I don't care about your stamp collection, Grandpa.
Yeah. Yeah, well, but that's like the thing. People like to collect, We as humans, we have like that hunter-gatherer kind of sort of thing, and we want to like
Yeah.
display like, oh, I got swag, or whatever to have that status. And that is
hmm
where it's very important for a human, but is it really like that valuable? You know what I mean?
Well, and what's funny to kind of bring it full circle, right, is, and then those NFTs are made by a robot. So are we not just being played? Like, here, it's like a robot being like, here's this buffalo skin for you to show the rest of the tribe. It's like,
Yeah.
like what,
Yeah,
what
on the one
value?
side, it's like it's really hard to like right now, it's nearly impossible to basically change the blockchain. So it's like it's near impossible, and that is the most secure way of like authenticating like. Oh, this thing is real, And what would be really good for credit cards and like signing documents online, because you copy and paste the picture, and modify it. You don't know if it's real. If the person
Yeah,
who signed it and sent it, you cannot
right.
make sure it's real. But if it's
hmm
bind to a blockchain and you see like, oh, this is not the real thing, then it becomes really valuable. Right now, people don't do this, but in the future, they will use the blockchain to make online transaction and whatever trackable, and then it becomes really valuable. But right now,
hmm
everything is just like, oh, I'm just putting an NFT on there and selling a picture, but nobody cares if that thing is real or not.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, it is. It's the wild, wild west, right? In both AI generative art and NFTs. God, like, when would you say NFTs really became a thing? I mean, what year would you say that was? When did NFTs even enter the world?
Yeah, now we're kind of switch topics, from AI computer to NFTs, but I think like it's still like kind of related, so we should just hit
I
on
think,
it.
yeah, we're
Yeah,
close.
because like, what was it, Beeple Crab or Beeple?
Yeah,
You know
people.
that
Yeah, the
artist,
artist.
the OG, super creative, you would say. He's coming up every day with a new piece of art. What is like made in like a 3D animation software? I don't even know what he's using. It's not Blender, I think, but he's like creating art for like 10 years, and he's like the OG. Sometimes I think he was on a podcast from Joe Rogan where he said like he's actually not really thinking about the art as much, and people read into it. So he's just putting stuff together, and people see meaning in it. What I really
hmm
like, because sometimes we overcomplicate things with like there has to be a deeper meaning in there. There has to be like the message. And yeah, he's just like, no, I like this. This is kind of trending, and I've thought about that, so I just decided Jeff Bezos and something else.
Yeah, and I mean, it is interesting because even he, I think, I've heard some of his conversations talking about his process, and even he doesn't hide away from the fact he uses templates, he uses things that people have already built,
Yeah,
and I think this is how we can kind of relate it back to AI is just and that we're AI really is that we're all combining things that have already been made, right? I think that's how the
yeah,
envelope keeps being pushed, right? So it's not like Beeple created the first ever texture. It's not like Beeple
yeah.
created,
But I think Beeple was the guy who basically sold the first biggest NFT drop. So that's why I was like
right.
bringing up Beeple. He was like the guy where I was like, what, you can make how much money, with your art?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
started.
Well, no, and you're exactly right. And so I think Beeple's interesting because he's the first example, I think, of a human acting like an AI and then making tons of money from it. Where he's just like smashing things together to create interesting things that don't even have to tell an exact thing. And now he's been able to end up. But it's just interesting. Like Beeple, I don't think there'll be another Beeple for a while. I think that's what's interesting is that he was kind of
Yeah.
he's the first one that got through, and now you're going to have a million people trying to do what he did.
Yeah, but
Um,
who does something for 10 years every day? That's like already that track record is crazy.
It is crazy. I can show this sometime on this podcast, but I did this thing where I did 600 figures. So there's 600 pieces of art
Yeah,
over 2 or 3 years, and so I can tell you firsthand that is so hard to do to just
yeah,
like constantly and I think even with him. it didn't produce any money for the longest amount of time. It has to
Yeah.
be, like this podcast, it has to be a you know a an effort of love
Yeah.
before anything. And so a
On
lot of
that
people won't
note,
get to
hit the
that level.
subscribe button.
Hit the subscribe. It's the Infinite Creative Podcast. And if you have any
Yeah.
ideas, email them at infinitecreativepodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah. Not everything is about money, but yeah, this is about our passion. So that's why we're talking about random stuff, kind of, sort of,
But yeah,
to
so I
bring
guess
it
to kind
back.
of to wrap up the AI talk, I mean, I agree with you to a degree. I think we're gonna lose a little bit of our value as creatives for sure. And I mean, even since I've become a designer in my 10 years, my 10 humble years of being a designer now, I've seen a huge change in my value.
Yeah.
So is that scary? Yeah, hell yeah, it's scary. However, with that being said, I would say it really just pushes all of us creatives to to push the bar more, I'd say. So
Yeah.
it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think you can still come up with a better idea than AI. I think so too, that I can too. But does that mean that when I give you like a a creative brief, your
Yeah.
first thing shouldn't be to go to Google and Google what other people have done. Because guess what? Now you're being like the AI. Now you're just going through the stuff that's already happened before and trying to combine it. So what I would almost challenge people is if you want to be better than AI, don't play the same game that AI is playing. Play a different game.
I want to be devil's advocate right now because like I think like sorry, yeah. I personally think like you're right, you should be creative, but I think there's like a level of humanity, there's apes and there's humans, and we're currently leveling out, it's like we cannot get better at a certain point, and all our knowledge and skills that we acquire will get lost and get restarted with a new generation,
Hmm.
but that AI will just improve, and at that point it's like it's too good, and should we then just like, oh, let's do human stuff again, and let's don't Google it, don't use AI, or should we use at that point, we right now I don't know how my phone works, and I should not try to build a phone, you know what I mean, I should just use the tools I have for the
Hmm.
next higher level. At what point, we're using the I think like if we would go back and do everything from scratch, sometimes it's worth it and to be more human like, but
Hmm.
at some points it's better to be like more machine like and be a company and build the best phone out there, instead of like I'm building a phone from scratch. You see what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like there's like companies, humans, and AI.
And apes. You also said apes. So.
Yeah,
Oh,
them too. Yeah, but yeah,
yeah. Okay. Well,
I'm
yeah.
thinking like we're leveling out. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, we'll have
Because
to.
there's a lot of crazy people out there.
Well, there's a lot of crazy AIs too. So I think,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, we'll probably touch on this topic multiple times. I think we're both right, and I think we're both at least agreeing on the fact that it doesn't seem like anyone frickin' knows what's next, right?
yeah,
Including us. So yeah, we'll keep following this topic
yeah.
closely.
Yeah, on that note, like, yeah, everybody has a different opinion about that, but yeah, let us know in the comments down below, if this is actually your opinion too, or if you have a different opinion. Yeah, just share it with us. I also will link all the sources that I have in my head for my opinions, because like I saw some videos, I'm already like really like biased on one side because I saw so many videos about AI, because I was like very doom and gloom, and I'm like, I think in the future we will not do like what AI does, because like, yeah, apes will be apes, humans will be humans, and AI will become its own thing. But right now we can use it. That's what I'm thinking. But
Well, to kind of quote what the Oxford study kind of finished on, what their final thoughts were in that whole study was that what artists and most likely designers and creatives are going to be doing is using these tools to hack new designs. I mean, so yeah, we can, instead of me worrying about page layouts, I let the AI do the page layout, which leaves more time for me to do crazy other stuff that I never would have had time to do before. So yeah, so I don't think it's doom and gloom. I think it's going to be a little bit of, like to use an example, most designers don't do hand lettering now. That's a special thing,
yeah,
because we type now. But that doesn't mean designers went away once we were able to start typing. So I think that's what gives me hope is that maybe AI is going to take away some of the things, like in Photoshop, you can automatically select the subject now by clicking a button. Do I miss that? Probably not. Was that what made me want to be a designer? Probably not. For
Yeah.
you, it's the finding the pixel in between the pixels to create sharper images. Does that make you less of a videographer? Probably not. So I think it's going to
Yeah.
be these things of like using AI to help you rather than using AI to hurt yourself. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll definitely have to bring this up as
Yeah.
things
What I was like
progress.
trying to say is like every community wants to be everybody wants to be part of a community. So this is like if AI becomes too good and it's not relatable anymore, or it's becoming too advanced, or it's too bad, we don't care about it. We will just do our thing, and we can go back to drawing. We can do whatever we do at our levels, and it's all about building communities, because like apes don't really care what humans do, even though we're more advanced. So it's like
No.
we're just a community, so we don't really have to worry about it unless it wants to get rid of us.
Yeah, unless that happens, right? Exactly. The best creative solution is to kill all humans. Hopefully that's never the creative brief.
Yeah, AI, if you listen, don't do it.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, leave
Yeah.
comments, especially if you're a bot. We'd love to hear from you.
Oh, yeah, we get them bots on. The viewers skyrocket. Yeah, but
Exactly.
on a lighter note, I want to kind of go on now onto a fun video because, like, we talked now about AI, creative, doing art, and I found a video yesterday where I was like, kind of, my mind was blown. It was on YouTube. Somebody built a Minecraft. Minecraft is a game where you basically have building blocks and you're dropped in a world and you can build stuff. And yeah, it's a survival game. It's not really meant for what the person did, what is already like a really creative idea. And it's more insane if you think about what it means. But I want to share my screen now and show you what it actually is. So we're sharing the screen. This is, I built a 1 hertz redstone computer. I don't want to play the whole video, but basically a person built a PC in Minecraft, and Minecraft was obviously not really meant to do this, and it's kind of crazy because each block has like
Oh wow.
yeah, has like abilities. Some are sand, some are redstone, and he basically built a computer with functioning parts out of the stones in the game. And usually that game is like, oh, there's trees, there's wood, and some of the things do certain things. But he built a working computer with the capabilities of a 1 hertz, a 1 hertz computer that can run calculations, it can run code. So basically, in a video game, somebody built a computer that can run code in a video game with the game logic. What is like insane. And he will demonstrate all the functions of the computer. It can run a clock, it can calculate. And it's kind of crazy if you think about it. And right now, already people are like iterating that PC. Here he's showing like 50 plus 100 is 150. He built a display in there. Yeah.
That's
Then he wrote
crazy.
yeah. If you think about it, it's crazy that you can already build a computer in a video game and
Right, right. Yeah, and it
and
was
then code in a video game what is not meant to happen. It is like abusing the system, breaking the boundaries. Um, the time that that player has to put in to build that computer, even designing a computer from scratch, requires an insane amount of understanding about how a computer works, how the game works. You would assume like certain things shouldn't be possible, but yeah, he made it possible. It's obviously not hacked and or like modified. It's like he runs through a bunch of different examples. People already iterated on that, tried to improve the computer. What is crazy if you think about it, and
hmm
it's like, yeah, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's very interesting, right? We are in this new exciting time of building realities, right?
Yeah,
Like we're pioneers, right? And so it's interesting to see these kind of yeah, that blows my mind, man. I mean, the amount of time, the sheer amount of time to do that. I mean, it's like
and
the
the
first
understanding. For me, it's the understanding. Like, how would you? There's like people who play Minecraft and they automate like a farm so that you can farm like wheat, So you build a farm that automatically gets the wheat taken out and then gets watered again, and that alone is like complicated, and you have to watch like tutorials and whatever. But that guy took it to a whole new level.
It's just interesting because I mean, because this makes me think of like, Steve Wozniak back in the early 80s or whatever,
Yeah.
creating a computer or the first keyboard in his garage, you know. That's what this reminds me of is you just have these people that are just bootstrapping it and figuring stuff out and yeah, they're building old computers, but is there argument that there could be a new computer, a new type of computer developed in Minecraft? Like something that
Yeah.
doesn't even exist in real life, completely
Yeah.
developed in another game. I mean, that's what's like, ugh, that just blows my mind. That's a
Yeah.
whole
Is-
level.
Yeah, it is like kind of mind-boggling because some people say like there's that theory that we live in a simulation, and the
Mm.
only way to counter that is like it would be impossible to make a simulation in the simulation. Well, now we're across the level. it's,
Getting there.
it's clearly proven that we can run a computer or build a computer in a simulation that runs code. What is like so it wouldn't be impossible.
Ah. Well, it's
Just the
interesting. Yeah.
extent of the first layer, how good it has to be, is like insane.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because code is just, all code can be boiled down to the kind of programming code, your C sharp and
Yeah,
and things like that. So it's like all code has ever been is just making it easier and easier and easier. And so it's like now we're in this place where we don't even have to type in code. We're now just talking about visual objects that represent code. So even the code, even in Minecraft, is getting simpler and simpler and simpler. 3D animation stuff too. It's another example of like, there's still the exact same code that Pixar used to make Toy Story. However, now there's just levels of code on top of it that have made it easier and easier and easier and easier.
yeah,
But the code is still there. It's like it never went away, right? Like that Minecraft, there's still C sharp code. If you were to cut through all the levels of what's going on here, all
yeah.
the way to the Minecraft programming language, that there's like, even there's like still that same code that was developed way back in the day. So it's really interesting.
I'm just like imagining right now. Imagine Minecraft in 2 years, and that guy and the community is building more computers, different variations that run a little bit faster and smoother. Let's say like 50
Hmm.
megahertz or 60, and it will just evolve how it is, because people do what they do. They always improve
Yeah.
and try new things out. And now they're running a more efficient code on that computer. What could you do? It's like at what point you can play GTA on Minecraft. Yeah, it is like it's crazy to think about. The future is becoming very weird.
I think that's the one takeaway from this whole episode. The future is becoming very weird. Um, yeah, so yeah, very weird, right? I mean, yeah, so creativity itself, I guess to kind of to combine to bring that back even is that, like I was talking about there's at everything there's like this core code. I think it's
Yeah,
you can say the same about creativity, right? Like everything could still be boiled down to the core ideas of what creativity is and what so it's like, so maybe code and creativity are the same thing, where they're just going to get built up more and more, but it'll always still be there. Like the heart of it will still always be there, but you just may have to keep digging more and more and more to get to the heart.
yeah.
Um,
I
yeah,
I
good
think
stuff,
like
man.
we should improve our code. That's what we're doing. That's why we're doing this podcast to get better at creativity, getting better in business, freelancing, and all that above. Um, should I share like the one thing again where I found the OpenAI playing hide and seek?
Yeah, yeah. If you have that ready to go,
Yeah.
yeah, show it.
So
Let's see.
yeah, let's end it on this one. So just in case if you follow our YouTube, you will see this obviously. But if you don't, well, it's time to subscribe now. On Spotify, I will explain what's happening right now. I'm sharing the screen about the AI game that was coded. And it's basically like two teams, and they basically can hide behind things. And the goal is like from each team to get found, and like hide and seek, how you know it. You can move certain things, and this is how the players are playing. Nobody teach the AI what to do, how to do it. AI learned it by itself by trial and error, like trying random things. And then I learned like, oh, if I get found, it's bad. Oh, if I move this, and this is going to happen. But then they glitched the game too. So this is how everything should work. AI is basically using it, and they get caught. And then I've tried to find it where yeah, there was a point in the video where they basically AI gets out of the game, where it's like, oh, now you cannot find me. And it would take a human player an insane amount of time, like that computer Minecraft, to come on and to get this idea to get out of the game so you cannot be found with a bug. And it's like after like millions of iterations, like in the beginning, it's like, where's the graph? There's somewhere a graph where it shows like how long it takes. Like with each iteration, it just becomes better and better. And here's like billions of samples. That is like the iteration it goes through. How many games you play at like hide and seek? This is in the billions, where a human could maybe play 1,000 games of hide and seek, or well, it's kind of crazy. I think I've maybe found it. No, I did not found it. Anyhow, that's what I want to end the video with. Oh,
Oh yeah,
crazy.
okay. Well, yeah, I mean, yes, I guess to just kind of wrap this all up, because I think we're going to touch on this multiple times. It's such a huge topic. There's so many subsets of this too to get into.
Yeah,
I think, it's interesting. I think, I guess to wrap it up, I think creativity is going to always exist. To get back to it, there's always going to be the core code, and us humans created that code to a degree. We created what creativity is, what that means over hundreds and thousands of years. But I think what we're seeing now is that creativity has value, but the process itself can be given to AI, can be given to these tools, and that I think we're only at the beginning of this. I think we're only, so in this video, you're showing that we can't play the same game a billion times, but AI can.
yeah.
And what we've talked about before, where AI can pull from a million different things quicker than we can.
And you iterate on it. What is like sooner or later it will become different, and
Yeah.
abuses the system and plays the game. Like I shared my screen right now, and I found the spot where it's basically so the red players have to stay for 20 seconds, and wait till the blue players are hiding, and in the 20 seconds they glitched out the ramp, and now they basically bunkered themselves in with the two boxes so that the red players cannot go into that room, and basically breaking the game. The ramp is not meant to be out there. That was the glitch in the game. So basically AI found out through trial and error, like if I do this kind of sort of thing, the game will glitch out and I can hide behind the walls and the other player will not get me. What is like abusing the system? What is like really creative and nice? You would never ever come onto that unless you have dumb luck or trial and error.
Yeah, well, yeah, but also, you gave the AI home field advantage. I want to see this built out on a sand lot with real walls built in real boxes, and then see if AI can cheat. That would be the ultimate thing. They have home field advantage. You have code figuring out how to manipulate code. That doesn't actually impress me that much. That actually is
Yeah.
cheating, and that doesn't necessarily
That
impress
is
me.
cheating.
That doesn't impress me. So, I mean, so what I would say is like, yeah, okay, cool, they did that, but now let's get real boxes and stuff and get a robot out there and see how long it takes for them to really cheat in real life when the power goes
Yeah.
out.
But the point is like with the cheating, the regular versions are like already better than players. Like what is like real humans. So if you would put them in a real scenario, we would not be able to compete.
Maybe. I
Yeah.
don't know. I see. I may push back on that. I would love to see. I'd love to see this game next to
Oh.
two humans, and I'm sure the
The
humans
best
wouldn't
of the world versus Alpha Star, just in case. Alpha Star is like an AI that is self-learning and it plays against the best human player. And there's a whole episode, they released a player so you can play against it. And yeah, then they did that with the game Go. You know that, I think it's a Japanese game where it plays Go.
Yep, it's an
Go
ancient game.
AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, it's very simple, but yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy scary. So I don't want to compete against AI. That's all I'm saying. Because I
Well,
know my limits.
well, yeah. And I mean, there doesn't need to be. I guess, yeah, no, with creativity, we can all coexist, I think. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's finding that worth for yourself too. Yeah, as a creative in the middle of this AI world. But I think we're fine. I think we all have to be good at adapting. I think that's the
Yeah.
biggest takeaway for me is you just got to adapt. You have to be okay with adapting.
Right.
And I think be willing to throw out the rules before an AI does, and you may be surprised. You may be able to do better than an AI. It took that
Yeah.
AI billions of times to realize how to break the rules. What if you could be the human that breaks the rules on the first try?
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. On that note, like I said, this is like it's a weird topic and it's a little bit over the heads, but there's a lot to see and a lot to learn. But we're very curious about your opinions. Yeah. So where can they find us, Sean?
Sean. So if you go on Instagram, you can find us at the Infinite Creative Podcast. So at Infinite Creative Podcast. Send us emails at infinitecreativepodcast@gmail.com or find us on Spotify, Infinite Creative Podcast as well. We're on there,
Yeah.
as well as YouTube. So follow us, like us. We need those early followers, so please, and send us any messages or comments if you'd like to have us talk about something, even if it's way over our head like this was. Send it to us,
Yeah.
and we'll do our best.
Yeah. So thanks for listening and rate the podcast 5 stars just to support us. I forgot to say that on Spotify. But anyhow, have a good day.